I'm going to rattle through some of the moves that have been formalised, or at least have had formal requests. So we saw Silvagni and TDK join St Kilda. If I'm not mistaken, these are the only two moves as well that the compensation has already come out, I think. The Blues have already received picks 8 and 19 as compo. Maybe just a quick one off the bat. We've talked about this storyline a fair bit, but would the Blues be happy with compensation of picks 8 and 19 for TDK and Silvagni, do you think?
Yeah, he'd be pretty stoked with that.
Yeah, I think that's great compensation.
Yeah.
It's probably It's probably not overs for TDK. I feel like 19 feels slightly high for Silvagni. Not that it should work like this, but then the strength of the draft kind of comes into that. And once the picks push back, it is quite late as well. The one thing to note here, that Carlton aren't necessarily going to be able to use these picks in the 2025 draft anyway, because they've got Harry Dean there as the father-son. Okay. So those picks would go to match that. He's likely to be a top 10 pick or get a bid in the top 10. So they're going to be better off to be able to push these back into further drafts. And that's why you're probably seeing them posturing a lot for players in the trade period as well. Yeah,
that's right. Like we've talked about the Curnow situation and how they only want established players, and I thought it was somewhat curious, and then you think about it, they've got 2 first-round father-sons who are quite highly rated, in particular Walker next year. So it makes no sense for them to I suppose, subject to what the new rules are around matching bids next year and how much more difficult that is. But you can understand why they don't want just like first-rounders this year, which they then have to shuffle on anyway.
I was just going to say, when you have those, like Harry Dean, Cody Walker, like 2 very high prospects as father-sons in a row, you're actually probably better off just to get out of the draft a little bit. Just look at who's on the market.
They're thinking that Jack Silvagni's contract is going to be at like $900K a year or something like that, like something stupid. Do you think he's worth that?
No,
but it's hard to speculate on that because the money is just sort of like we don't know what the total budget is, if that makes sense. Yeah. So what we're really talking about is like what percentage of the salary cap is that, and how much is that likely to escalate? So like. Oscar Allen's getting around $1 million a year from Brisbane. Starcevic has been offered not far below that. Jack Silvagni, but is that going to get closer to the median price of what AFL players are paid in 5 years?
True.
Now that TDK, Nazaya, Harley Reid are on $2 million, they're essentially twice.
Nazaya and Silvagni are on the same list. Like, God, I don't know. They're feeding a lot of money into these top budget players, but I think we spoke about it already. Like, they're pretty much just going, Nazaya is here for the next 2 years. Let's throw everything at this next couple of years and see what happens. And TDK joins as well. He's on that massive multi-million-dollar deal, and that has pushed out Rowan Marshall, who has nominated a move to Geelong, which wasn't a massive surprise, but it's a big move for Geelong to make, and an area of need, an area that they absolutely need to fill with Reece Stanley. He's old and got absolutely downed out in the grand final, I thought.
Yeah, I think if you're Geelong, it's an incredible move, really. He's at like 29. Yeah. So he kind of fits their age profile as far as like pushing for a premiership.
Borderline All-Australian last year as well.
Borderline All-Australian. You think about what it does, like flexibility-wise, to free up a blitz halves who they can now use in different positions as well. So they don't like typically, I think Rowan Marshall particularly does suit the Cats as well because they don't really play that stoppage-dominant game. Rowan Marshall's not really a stoppage-dominant ruckman. He's someone that gets involved on the outside. So I feel, in a way, like they'll just have a better version of what they wanted Reece Stanley to do anyway, just a bit more of an accomplished player. So perfect for them. It does bring that question in. I personally, I like what the Saints are doing because I think they're being aggressive as a smaller Melbourne club. It's difficult to find ways to get better, and you're probably not going to just do it going back to the draft. So they're having a crack at least. Like it might blow up in their face. It's difficult to lose a player like Marshall, who's a sort of cultural guy. How do you guys feel about that if you're a Saints fan? Are you happy with what's going on at the moment? Or do you feel... I feel like sometimes there's an element with the spending where fans they get a little bit too involved in the spending and they think they're losing their own money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. One other thing I was going to add around the big contracts for these guys, there's always a premium on free agency moves to motivate a player to move. It's going to be their biggest contract of their lives, usually a free agency contract. It's also the premium you pay for not having to trade anything. So I think clubs look at that. They're like, we'll be willing to spend more on a salary to ensure, and this might not even apply to Silvagni in particular, but ensure the other club does not match and force a trade. I know that my club in the position it is, we would rather value the draft picks and the capital that we have in that space over salary cap. I don't really care if we overpay for a free agent to ensure we don't have to give up a first round draft pick. So these are all factors. As for St Kilda, I mean, I would have thought it would have been a really. Actually, I did realize I'm not answering your question here. I was going to answer: are they disappointed to lose Marshall? I was thinking
go into that, and then we can continue.
Well,
to explore.
I was actually just going to sidewell a little bit into the fact that Cal Wilkie has reaffirmed his commitment to St Kilda. I think that was probably the far more important retention for them. And I think even Saints fans probably would have acknowledged it would have been great to get all these players, but if you lose a Cal Wilkie in the same breath, and I think if I'm not mistaken, there was hopefully the chat can help us. I don't know if Wilkie was offered more money to stay at St Kilda or if he just didn't sign a contract with the Bulldogs. But I think that was a really important signing for him, amongst other things.
I think from what I read, they upped it.
I thought I read that too.
So he was more in line with those top guys that are coming in as well. He'd been underpaid for a long time. And I think that was a part of it. And then obviously gets a captaincy as well. But yeah, I think sometimes like fans can be a little bit, I don't know, they think like what is actually the worst thing that could happen in this situation for the Saints? I guess
you're getting TDK in as well. So it's not like you're losing Marshall and then you've depleted one stock. Yeah. Robbing Peter to pay Paul, as Jesse would say.
I don't think you've actually lost anything on field from a playing perspective. No. I think you've actually probably improved that, 100%. At least from a ceiling point of view. I know Marshall's had a better career so far than TDK just because he's older. But you're improving that. It's more, I guess, relationships and stuff like that with Marshall. He seemed to be like a pretty good club guy. But I don't think you can always be just safe with those moves as well. Like you have to get aggressive.
I just got a question here from Matt McCann. It's a good one.
Shout out to Matt McCann.
Yes. If Silvagni and Allen contracts similar, why did Carlton get pick 19 and not a higher pick? Obviously, for those who don't know, I think Matt probably knows this. Obviously, it's tied to the ladder position, but obviously we're talking band 2 versus band 1. I'm pretty sure Silvagni's 28 and Allen's 26, and I think that does go a long way into compensation. And
it's not purely salary.
No, it's not. There's like secret herbs and sprites, and and the AFL can sort of massage a result if they want it. In this case, Silvagni being 28. Thank you, AFL. Silvagni's contract was obviously length of deal goes into it. I'm not sure how long. Did you say how long Silvagni's contract was for?
It was just 900K, and they reckon it's like a 4.5 million deal. So probably
5 years.
Oh yeah, maths.
Yeah, mathematics.
And we do know
so similar, probably.
There is always an element with the AFL, I think, where they kind of give the picks out based on how fucked you are. Like we've seen that as well. North Melbourne and West Coast receiving like particularly high compensation picks. Yeah. I don't know. They obviously wouldn't say that.
I think, and I don't know if this is still true, but I think like best and fairest finishes count. And it's possibly also true. How much was Allen making in a ranking at West Coast versus Silvagni?
So I think that's also where considered. You sit
in the pecking order of the club you're leaving.
Interesting.
I've heard that, but obviously we there's no objective criteria that we go through.
It does feel a little bit with Silvagni. Like it feels why 19 feels a little bit high for me, even though the salary is high, is that Carlton weren't even always playing this guy. Yeah. Like he was playing in the twos, like as recently as 2024, wasn't he?
Was he?
Yeah.
No, he didn't come back from an ACL.
I'm sure there was like a period relatively recently, like don't quote me on it, but where he was actually not even in their best side. I know this year they've had tons of injuries and he's been really consistent. Maybe a Carlton fan will be a little bit better on that week to week, but I feel like there's been form issues and he's been that swing man as well. Like is he a defender? Is he a forward? Those sorts of things.
So he missed all of 2024 with an ACL, but yeah, he's never put together a full season. That's another thing I was sort of thinking of. I feel like he has been a bit of a swing man. So he's played forward, he's played in the ruck at times, and he's played in defence. He's obviously not going to play in the ruck for St Kilda, but do you think he'd be better off as a forward or a back? Because I feel like he only went into defence out of necessity for the Blues.
I like him as a defender.
Yeah, personally. I would agree with that. Yeah.
But at the same time, I actually look at St Kilda's team and I think maybe they could use him more as a forward, but then that also makes me think that they might use Alex Tyree as a forward because I do think they see him as that player in the long term. But whether they think he's ready to do that yet is another question. So that'll be an interesting watch. But certainly from a club, like they don't have, as far as from a key position forward perspective, I don't think the Saints have the best quality there.
Yeah, the swing.
With James Worpel was also nominated to move to Geelong, so I'm not sure if you said that, but the Cats now have 2 players signing, and they only hold picks 18 and 38, if I'm not mistaken, to get a deal done for Rowan Marshall, who is contracted and a deal would have to get done. They're also in the market for Curnow, so I have no idea how this gets done, if at all.
And they try to get Charlie Curnow as well.
Yeah.
Where does James Worpel rank in Geelong midfielders?
So Bailey Smith, Max Holmes. I know these guys play pretty fluid roles.
Yeah. Atkins is better.
Atkins is better, and then he's the next one.
Yeah, that's probably true.
There's nobody. I think in some ways I feel like they'd probably use like Worpel can't really play anywhere else.
Yeah.
I think Atkins, because he's got that defensive ability, he can go and play roles on others as well. It's fixes a little bit for Geelong because I do feel like they could be better at just getting on top in the stoppages.
Yeah.
And Worpel will provide something in that, but he's not an elite player. I don't think he's ever been elite, even at that one specific role. Like he's not as good as the best first posse guys.
Yeah.
And he doesn't offer you a lot on the outside.
No.
Like he can probably sneak forward and hit the scoreboard, but I don't reckon he's done that even consistently across his career. So he'll be a nice like depth piece there, and I think someone that they can kind of rely on. But yeah, he's not majorly moving the needle for him.
Well, yeah, in 2019 he was the BNF for Hawthorn, and then this year, just looking through Hawthorn posts, their fans were so harsh on him. I think it was maybe the Adelaide game. He was like, Worpel got subbed on late. And like fans like, oh, Worpel lost us the game. Like, couldn't kept trying to run through tackles, get taken down, or not working back defensively and that sort of stuff. So, sort of peaked early in 2019. He won the BNF, and then heading to Geelong. Raid said in the chat he'll be Geelong's best mid, but hopefully we can see his career.
Who said that?
Is it Raid Mazray? Yeah.
I mean, that could be a little bit of a joke. Like, player of other club goes to Geelong, becomes the best mid, right?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm not sure, but I would have thought Max Holmes, amongst others, would have had it covered.
Maybe you could make an argument for him that he'd be above Atkins, but I think Atkins is really good at what he does.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So
Atkins is like close to 30, I reckon. It might even be like 31. I'm not sure. I think he's around my age.
Yeah.
But if not, it's like 29 or 30. So
he's certainly older. I do think it's one of those like, I don't know, cliche, but like people would call it like a money ball move.
Yeah.
Where you sort of just bring in someone that's not great, but they do a role probably better than the next best that you've got. So I'm going to improve you massively.
Is the role just hands on ball first midfielder?
I believe so.
Okay.
They if there's one area that the Cats struggle, it's that. They can light it up from stoppage at times, like from centre bounce and stuff like that, but they do struggle a little bit with territory, and they're more of a ball movement side. Like Smith and Holmes, you don't think about them necessarily as like getting their hands dirty consistently, like someone like a Caleb Sarong. So I think Worpel's like a B grade version of Sarong for you guys. You know what I mean?
Okay. You think of that Geelong midfield who got torched on grand final day? Holmes, great runner. Smith, great runner. Do they have a great kick in there? Is Holmes a decent kick, I'd say? I don't mind Bailey Smith at times, but he's not an elite kick. But I don't know. You look at that Brisbane midfield and you talk about that like top level, like they had so many different looks through there on grand final day. And to get that flag, do Geelong have enough right now? And is adding James Worpel going to provide them with that? I mean, they're only a quarter off winning the flag. So
yeah, I mean, he's a worse he's probably the worst kick of all of those guys. James Worpel, he's not going to give you that. I do think that Geelong have they've built their game. They're not necessarily one of those teams that like really builds the ball up and uses their kickers from like the midfield or anything like that, like a Hawthorn or a Brisbane, like they're really high possession, like uncontested mark sort of stuff. Like I feel Geelong want to get you with like power running on the outside.
Yeah. Okay.
And they try to get more so like less so contested marks inside forward 50. They want to get marks on the lead.
Yeah.
So that means that you don't necessarily like you're kind of more beating the opposition with running. Power is what I'm saying. You do need elite kicks, but I feel like their elite kicks come in the half-forward flank, like your Grind Myers, your Sean Manor types and stuff like that. Could they use more elite kicks? Like definitely, I think every team could.
Yeah.
And it's always good to be able to go into that mode where you can control the football. But yeah, it's a bit of a game style one for me.
Yeah, a couple of people in the chat shout out Grind Myers. I suppose we were just talking about like the on-ball rotation there with the Cats. We'll move on to some other. We had 3 trade requests to West Coast. I know Destination Club, and everyone's.
No.
Well, you say Destination Unknown. I think West Coast is a little bit more Final Destination these days. But thank you. That was incredible. 3 players have requested trades formally. Brandon Starcevich, Tyler Young. We snatched him from the jaws of North Melbourne, and Devon Robertson. This is the second or third time we've attempted to get Devon Robertson, and we've finally managed to get that trade request. We will do a more Eagles-focused segment a little bit later in this show and talk about where they're at and what they can do. But surface level thoughts about adding 3 close to best 22 players to their list.
Well, Starcevich instantly improves your defense.
Yeah.
Dev Rob, I don't feel like we've seen... 2023 played a lot of footy, but since then we haven't really seen him enough to know what his best looks like and how much he elevates. And then Young, I actually have not seen play football.
He's probably the one I like the most. Starcevich is the best player, but he's got the concussion issues.
Yeah, that's worrying.
But Tyler Young, at least, is more of a positional need for us. We needed someone to partner Harry Edwards as that like reliable to keep defender setup, and he has when he's played AFL has looked pretty good. Robertson, I don't think is a long-term AFL player, but does he come in and does he improve on a Clay Hall? And could he emulate Jack Graham and be another one in that midfield? It's still better than nothing for the cost.
My issue with Devon Robertson, just to hone in on that one for a second, it's like, we keep talking about West Coast needing that type of player, but it's like, which one are you going to get? So is that the only one of that player that you're going to get? Because you don't need tons of those guys.
Yeah.
He's kind of... I don't 100% know what Devon Robertson is or could be because he hasn't played enough football, but like I see him as probably an inside mid only, right?
Yeah, agreed.
I don't think he has a lot of flexibility.
Wasn't
outside.
he a bit of a tagger?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess the
Maybe
question, what I'm asking is like we're talking about with the draft, like, do they play that safe bat and take a first possession mid like a Dyson Sharp? There's other players kicking around. We've talked about like Lockie Neal, who's not going. Obviously, Jack Steele's probably on the table, and I feel like every time a player like that comes up, we're like, he could go to West Coast. So where does Devon Robertson fit into that? Like, is he going to come in and be that player, or is he just going to be? Is he going to be doing the same thing at West Coast as he was at Brisbane?
You'd hope not. I mean, like in the VFL, which I know is a different competition, he was at least getting really good numbers in terms of clearance and playing as that extractor type midfielder. I think in the short term, that would like improve West Coast to have that sort of player, even if like longer term, that's not the sort of setup or type of player that's really going to lift us into like finals contention, but it would help us in the next 2 to 3 years. And for the cost, I think it makes sense. I'd imagine he should get the opportunity to get serious on ball minutes at West Coast. I can't imagine West Coast pushing him out. I think it's a waste if West Coast do that.
Would you still like implore West Coast to go after like a more experienced version of that player, like a Jack Steele or something like that?
Yeah, I would. I would get Robertson and Steele.
So then where does the development fit into that then? If like Robertson and Steele are playing in the same midfield, how do you get minutes into Elijah Hewitt, Harley Reid, and whoever you pick up in the draft?
Well, they've got to be the first names on the team sheet.
Yeah, agreed.
Hewitt, Reid, and then
I think you can fit most of those guys in. To be honest, you can push Graham out to a wing. I think Hoff may just push back into the back line. Baker can play more forward. I think there is a way you can fit all those players in. You certainly wouldn't be taking too much time from Hewitt or Reid, but also at other more successful clubs, these players do their apprenticeship, rather than. Harley's ready to go, and Elijah's probably getting there. But someone like a Dyson Sharp, he doesn't need to play 24 games as a midfielder. If West Coast drafted him, he can potentially, just using him as an example, play a little bit of waffle and develop in there, and then move into the AFL side when he's ready. We don't necessarily need to give him that baptism of fire. With Dyson, he probably is ready-made with using that particular example, but what if it's a Sam Grill?
Yeah.
You give them that time. That's what would happen at Geelong. That's what they did with Jai Clark. Admittedly, Jai Clark also hasn't come on like expected, but other clubs are in a position to be slow and steady with these guys. Whereas West Coast, it's a little bit like, okay, just see what you can do.
Yeah, it's always like that with those bottom end clubs. It's kind of, I guess it's just that one thing we've talked about is Dyson Sharp specifically being that ready to go guy. And he probably has of all those guys in the top end, the one thing that you're not getting with him is positional flexibility.
Yeah.
And he doesn't need as much development. So it's kind of, for me, it's like you almost wouldn't pick him with pick 1 or pick 2 if you weren't playing him a fairly large amount of midfield minutes.
I think it's a fair point. Like if West Coast hypothetically got Robertson, Steele, and Sharp, it would get a little bit crowded up in here. But at the same time, then you think, okay, like let them fight for that position, and that's what a successful club would do, is to create that positional competition, which has not existed at West Coast for some time.
It'll just give you so much more flexibility though, and take some of the heat off like your Harley Reeds and your Elijah Hewitts, allow them to develop. Like you said, you can move Hoff around, or maybe give Harley Reid more time in the forward line, which, you know, in that first derby he showed you can kick 3 goals and be a real presence down there. So I think
true.
adding depth to that midfield is a great move for West Coast.
So just to clarify there, Jesse, you wouldn't, not to go too heavily here on West Coast, you wouldn't change the drafting there?
Not necessarily. I'm also not super locked in on Dyson Sharp. You know what I mean? Like I think, you know, to see what we can do. I think Steele and Robertson, particularly Steele, for the record, we're speculating about this as though it's a chance. There hasn't really been anything to suggest West Coast are a chance of getting Steele. So we're speaking more hypothetically here. But I think you try and get Steele in for the leadership aspect. Dev Robertson, because he is probably better than pick 60 in the draft. You know, from that point of view, it's like that makes sense considering the cost. But you don't really deviate from what your original drafting philosophy is, whether that's Dyson Sharp, whether it's Sullivan, Roby, or whoever West Coast pick.
Fascinating time for the West Coast Eagles. Like they have to get those...
Almost fun,
yeah. But they have to get those little decisions right. You know what I mean? Like they don't want to overexpose youth, but they don't want to underexpose it either.
Yeah. No, you make a really good point. We'll move on. We will get back to West Coast at some point in this show. Malcolm Rosas Jr. requested a move to Sydney. This was, this is a kind of a smaller deal, but Sydney won his services. I think Richmond were pretty up to their necks in it. Connor Budarick chose the Bulldogs over, I think, North and Brisbane. Adelaide have gotten a request from Callum Chee. What do we think about Archie moving? I suppose that one probably has the most juice to it. Where does he fit into that forward line, which has probably a pretty good number of medium to small forward types already?
Yeah, watching him on grand final day, he's quite versatile, isn't he, Callum Archie? I remember him like intercepting the footy a lot, like just really good in the air. So I don't think he's actually. I probably said a few weeks ago that I didn't exactly see where he fits. He'd still be a good player to bring in as a best 23 player that can give you flexibility. But yeah, I'd say if he does play as that kind of main small forward, it gives him the ability to move Josh Rochelle into the midfield. Isaac Rankin can play some more minutes, and it's just another weapon in there for them that's a little bit different. He's a little bit stronger through the core. He's like a bit more of a tackle breaker as well. But having, as we've seen with Geelong, having these players that are quite flexible can be a real point of difference for you. And I think like they've got Jordan Dawson who can go behind the ball, can push forward as well. Having somebody like Callum Archie, it's just a weapon. And they probably got exposed a little bit in finals with some of those
100%.
Lower end players, right?
True.
By the time, like I can't remember all of the guys, but Berry struggled a little bit. I think Zach Walker probably struggled a little bit with the moments.
It was like Pedler and there's another guy, Zach Taylor, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was just a few of them in that Adelaide side. I remember like last year when Hawthorn lost to Port in the semi-final, there was just that bottom end of players like you're talking about. So you bring in a 2-time premiership player, Cal Archie. I think there's enough room for him at the Crows for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, it's probably more an interesting target, but as somebody points out, he's a good defensive forward as well, which is not something that's easy to come by.
Yeah.
If they also kick goals.
And they want like big goals in big games. What did he kick in the granny in 24? Like 4 goals?
Kicked 4 goals.
I think he had a big game in the prelim too.
Yeah, I think he had a big final series.
Yeah.
I think he kicked 10 goals across the 4 finals, which is pretty solid
he had a massive
going.
last quarter against Geelong in that prelim last year.
Yeah, I remember that. Like just pops up. He's one of those guys like probably like premiership season to season. Like you don't notice him that much.
Yeah.
But I guess he's just doing his job.
Just seems like, very like a player that a coach can rely upon to get a job done on a dangerous forward whilst also like making them accountable back the other way.
Yeah.
Couple of Gold Coast small forwards you mentioned there. Jesse, Malcolm Rosas Jr. I thought you were going to press me on him, but you didn't. And Connor Budarick. Where does that leave the Gold Coast small forward stock?
Well, it was bad and it has gotten weaker again. We knew that they were in the market for a small forward going into this year. Perhaps it's one of those things that the Petracca thing has bobbed up And suddenly it's like, okay, maybe we'll focus on this, and it might have deviated away from their attention. But as far as I know, there's no like linked solution here for the Gold Coast Suns. They might have to draft one.
Well, Budarick played a lot of footy this year and played in the final series, and then they've got that Joe Farah. I can never remember.
Jai Farah or
Yeah.
Farah, yeah.
So yeah, that's probably just like a position of need. In preparation for this, I was saying, Malcolm Rosas Jr. is going to Sydney. And like he's not a name that jumps off the page, but he was highly favoured under Shuey Jew, played a lot of footy, averaged 2 goals a game in 2024. Or almost 2 goals a game. So he's got some swag about him, heading to Sydney.
Likes to go camping.
It was a bit of a blindsided one, this one for me. Like I thought he was just guaranteed to go to Richmond.
Budarick.
No, sorry.
Rosas Jr.
Rosas
sorry.
Jr.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Is that who you were talking about, Drew?
Yeah.
Or did I get confused? Yeah. Rosas Jr. Like I just thought he was going to end up at Richmond. All of a sudden, at the final hour, ends up at Sydney. So yeah, it's a good move for them.
Got Ben Ainsworth as well, I suppose, the Suns. That's just one I
he's
remembered.
Another player.
He's
that's
another
linked to a
player
move.
that's been linked away,
True.
as has Bailey Humphrey.
Yeah.
And we're going to get on to all the rumours after this, by the way. These are just the confirmed requests and moves.
Yes,
But
sorry about
Yeah,
that.
we'll do that. No,
God,
that's all
Gold
right.
Coast have got to be the most busy side this trade period. It's going to be a massive week and a half for them.
St Kilda, Gold Coast, Melbourne, to some
West
extent
Coast.
West Coast with lower profile deals, but still like a lot going on. It's an interesting time to be alive for those clubs. Yeah, Judd McVee.
Massive.
Actually before we get to Fremantle, because there is a trade request, but Brisbane's depth. We know that there's been a lot of positive talk about them getting in Annabelle, Draper, and Allen, and that is positive, and I'm sure it's a net positive. But the other side of this is losing 2 premiership players in Starcevic and Callum Chee and Devon and Robertson. How do we think that will impact them? I mean, it's not as though they lack depth, but the players that they're bringing in are not necessarily replacing the players that come out. I do wonder if there'll be some sort of positional and structural disruption there.
It's hard to say before we see it materialise, but I feel like players like Callum Chee and Brandon Starcevic, they're like the small pieces that make a premiership side, you know what I mean? Just like role players that have been so pivotal. Starcevic for a long time has been one of the best sort of medium-sized lockdown defenders in the comp, and we just spoke a lot about Callum Chee. Again, it's hard to see, and I probably would say Brisbane are the most likely to do a three-peat next year and win the flag, but could this be just like the first chink in the armour of Brisbane? Because you lose 2 important players like that, and then you just bring in these like big money guys. I do worry that they are making a mistake here, even though, Starcevic wants big money. Callum Chee probably just wants a bit more sort of guarantee as a footballer in this point in his career. So
I'm actually just trying to think of those like dynasty teams like Richmond and Hawthorn and Geelong, and even back to the other Brisbane side. Have we seen like mid-dynasty them move their list this much?
can't think with Richmond.
It stayed pretty. I mean, Hawthorn lost Buddy Franklin.
I think there was at least some deviation around the players who were premiership players, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
But I don't know about players leaving in the same way. But then again, at the same time, like Brisbane's also recruiting some really decent talent.
Yeah.
I think it's just a bit of an underrated thing. Like when teams lose some of these key like role players. I mean, even GWS lost like 7 players last year. That's another example. And then suddenly the floor falls out a little bit. I have a feeling with Brisbane chasing Connor Budarick, I reckon it would have been as a small defender to replace Starcevic. So that is still going to be a bit of a positional need for them. I don't know their depth as well, so I don't know who else could be a small defender in place of Starcevic.
Well, Darcy Wilmot steps up, doesn't he? Even though he's already playing a big role, like he
I was
probably gets a bigger
just
role.
about to say, Drew, is like I don't fully agree with you that they have to be worried about this. I mean, obviously it's like hard to be worried when you've just won 2 flags anyway, but you probably should have a mentality that this is going to happen and clubs are going to come in for your premiership players and probably pay overs for them.
Yeah.
A little bit in the likes of Archie and these guys. You've got to be like next man up. And Brisbane, because they're so young, I think they're going to get so much natural improvement out of those younger players anyway. Like think about what Levi Ashcroft's going to do next year. Ty Gallup, Sam Marshall, these kind of guys can probably step up as well.
Yeah.
I think where it could go wrong for them potentially is like you're bringing in players with maybe like a little bit bigger personality, like Sam Draper, and he's a really different sort of a ruckman for them. And so it's like fundamentally like how is that going to gel? could they get off to a slow start and then be chasing finals again? They haven't been the best home and away side as it is.
Yep.
Like when they're
Last
trying to
couple of years.
Yeah, they're trying to gel together with Draper as the number one ruck. Allen's a different type of forward, isn't he? So it's going to change their structure up forward as well. Like this year I think they were really brave with like bringing in Gallup for a day, even though they wanted that. I guess like Oscar Allen's going to play that day role, but yeah, it's going to be a very different look, and they're going to have to like get better pretty quickly off a short preseason.
Completely changes the dynamic. Well said. Fart Explosion says it won't impact them. Neil, Cameron and Dunkley played with 5 arms and 4 legs between them. So pretty confident that the Lions will be all right.
Yeah,
I'm sure they would be. It's also like a good philosophy that when you're at the top, you do kind of keep trying to reinvigorate and stay the best and be ahead of the competition. And like Starcevic leaving, like if 2 flags in a row doesn't keep him, not much will. So there's not too much closure missing there, I would have thought. Judd McVee requests trade to Fremantle. Yes. I suppose quickly we'll just say what is your reaction to this? And I know this is a player you've rated for some time.
Yeah, spent his first year in the VFL, won a flag with Casey. And then ever since, he's pretty much been a mainstay in that D side. Started as a lockdown defender. His main sort of reason that's been coming out why he wants to leave is to get higher up the ground. So I feel like the Ds might have been playing him as that sort of like real lockdown sort of first name that comes to mind is like Quainer type, like real deep lockdown defender. And he wants to get higher up the ground and maybe play on the halfback flank. Probably plays a similar role to like a Carl Warner at Freo at the moment, or a Jordan Clark type. I'd like to see him push up to the wing because that's a position of need for us. But no, really happy with the move. I think he's a really composed player with the ball in hand, real high IQ player who has a good kick on him. He played a little bit of midfield time for the Ds. I know your name's Judd, but you're probably not going to break into that midfield at Freo for a while at least.
There's a line more there. Ashley Judd.
Just his time, I watched him a little bit later in the season when he did move into the midfield a little bit, and he was definitely, he finds the footy pretty well. Like he was a little bit nervous on the ball in the midfield role.
Okay.
Yeah, like his kicking and decision making was a lot more rushed, which you'd expected it to be in the middle of the ground. So it'll be interesting how over the next couple of years that develops. But you're probably right. Like as far as a needs perspective, he either fits like as a halfback still for you guys.
Yeah.
He's not walking into a team that's like infinitely worse where he just walks into the midfield, is he?
Yeah. And I'm just thinking that position of like, because we need to transition the ball better, but I don't really think that comes from lack of players that are able to do that. I think it's more of a coaching and a belief thing, because we've got like Cooper Simpson, who's a great ball user, who's played a lot of halfback in the Waffle and then had an injury interrupted year. As for a lockdown defender, Brandon Walker, who was best 22 for a few years before going down with injury as well. So bit of depth. I'd like to see him play on the wing. But yeah, happy to see that materialise. What are we talking in terms of currency, do you reckon? Sort of late second round pick?
Oh, I would have thought a first rounder, but not like top 10.
You said late second.
Yeah,
second for Judd?
Nah, it's not going to get it done.
He's a first round draft.
First round?
Yeah, I reckon. Late first.
Yeah, late first is probably about right. Yeah. Okay. I guess he's a very talented young guy.
Yeah.
That being said, what do Freo have? Like, I think the first pick's like 11. That's probably a little too early.
Yeah.
What were we talking about with Budarick for the
I'm not sure.
Oh, I don't know if that was been reported on. I would have thought quite late though.
Yeah, because I was going to say like, what were people talking about with him? Because McVee's a considerably better.
Yeah. No, Budarick. He'd be like second or third rounder. I would have thought.
David Walls, our list manager, said we're going to try to move up the draft order. So maybe that's in an effort to send some picks the D's way. And yeah, the D's are going to be very busy this trade period.
Yeah, or just package him with like a second rounder with Luke Jackson to get Judd McVee in.
Yeah, we have just received a
good one. Back to McVee. Trev Wilmot thinks he's overrated. Can't hit a target. Doesn't really defend that well. And then Matt McCann chimes in with Druzy has got rocks in his head. Late second. Ha ha ha. Well, my logic there is we lost Blake Acres for I think it was like a second round pick or
McVee's
a third round pick.
McVee's younger and better.
Blake Acres was great. But
Akers had like a really good season at Fremantle
Older,
and was
yeah.
a pretty underwhelming player with all due respect before that.
Yeah.
So those are all factors. When McVee sort of gradually improved, and
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be like an all-Australian caliber, but like I wouldn't say it's out of the question.
Mm-hmm.
Like he is talented. Charlie Spargo has formalised a move to the Melbourne Footy Club. You're a North fan, Dylan, so tell us how excited you are.
We've already done this.
I know, I keep
talking about
debating,
this again.
but it's been formalised.
I will say, I said to you guys when you walked in, I was having a look at his like numbers and stuff during the week, and I noticed that the thing that jumped out at me that I was surprised by was his age. I thought he was considerable. I feel like he's been around for a lot longer than being 26.
Right, yeah.
I thought he was at least 28, 29. So I got a little bit of a surprise by that, but it doesn't make me any happier about the move. I guess it's fair enough. It's not as if North are trying to sell this as like a marquee signing. It is what it is, right? You're kind of bringing in, you're an experienced player, you've won premierships. They're trying to do that model that other clubs have done where they bring in the experienced sort of superstars like Luke Parker type players. They've tried to bring in just the status of the club, North Melbourne. We can't go after very good players. So we're just bringing in any premiership players that we can find, I assume is the deal here.
He's from a successful operation. Obviously, it hasn't gone well lately, but he played in a good team and in an age bracket where you don't have a lot of players, I would have thought.
Yeah, and there is some like role there for him as Drewsy likes to say, that connection piece.
He's a great connect.
The connection piece inside forward 50. But I think if you look at the players that play this, where I come from it, what I'm sort of trying to say here is you look at the best players in the competition that play that role, your Brian Myers, your Dylan Moores, those types. Like
Murphy Reeds.
Yeah, Murphy Reed. Murphy Reed probably counts. He doesn't have a full complement of the attributes of those guys. I think he's from when that role, that sort of high forward that got up to stoppage was first coming in. I think he was pretty good at that, but he's limited with what he can do.
What do you think he's limited in?
Mainly speed.
I thought he's pretty quick. Is he not?
I would say mainly speed.
I reckon he's got a bit of speed about him. I think.
He's not like slow.
He's not rapid. He's not Cyril Rioli pace. He's not Jetta pace, but I think he is pretty fast.
And comparing him to like a Brian Myers, for example, or a Dylan Moore, like he's not as good a kick. So he's from that Melbourne system, which is very much like a territory-based system. Yeah. It's sort of like just get it forward, get it into the forward line, and then we go again. Mm-hmm. So I think he'll probably be solid. Like he'll be okay. I don't think and he'll get into the team, for example. But yeah, like he's not changing much for us. And I would have liked to have seen us take players like that a little bit higher in the draft, as opposed to have gone for a Spargo.
Jacob Wehr has formally moved to Port Adelaide, I think, as a delisted free agent. Not too much to say about that. 27-year-old, I think he is, from GWS. And we'll move to probably the biggest one we've saved to the last. Christian Petracca has requested a trade to the Gold Coast Suns. This probably should have been ranked a little bit higher in this segment, but that's all right. Keep them, reel them in.
I thought you were supposed to start strong.
Yeah, no, never. That is not my philosophy. So Christian Petracca, after a tumultuous week of news, we knew like this time last week that Petracca leaving was probably quite possible. And I would say 24 to 36 hours ago, my understanding was it was more likely to be Adelaide. He flew to Adelaide to meet with the Crows. Then he flew to the Gold Coast Suns like a day later to meet with the Gold Coast Suns and has ultimately decided to request a trade to them. I think this probably makes sense, even just like going straight to the part where how does a deal get done? Gold Coast probably is the team because they've got a lot of players going out. But I suppose to start off with, if you're in Petracca's shoes, which club would you rather have joined?
Yeah, Gold Coast. They are probably one of the bigger destination clubs in terms of most exciting projects to join in footy right now. I feel like a lot of Crows fans didn't want Petracca because I think they've sort of been burnt by like the moves for like Gibbs and I can't really think of any other ones, but like signing like like highly touted players, and then they've sort of gone to crap. But would you say Gold Coast as well, Dill? Would you rather play for Gold Coast?
I'd absolutely rather play for Gold Coast. I know there was kind of the innuendo that he suggested to Adelaide that he wanted a better contract, and that was kind of the sticking point. But it feels like if you're Christian Petracca, just everything made like it didn't feel like it made sense for him to go to Adelaide, like even commercially for like what he does either. Like the Gold Coast just seems to make more sense.
Does he instantly become the biggest star at the Suns? Probably. Is he
like
the
from
highest profile player they've had since Gablet?
Yeah,
Probably,
I suppose he probably is.
Yeah,
I feel
definitely.
like from a performance point of view, like purely on field, I think it's Rowell and Anderson are better footballers than he is now.
Yes.
But yeah, certainly from a star power perspective.
Yeah. With that cooking show.
Did you see? Well, he's got a holiday house up in Noosa, which is another factor in this, I suppose.
Luke M says his in-laws are from the Sunshine Coast.
There you go. So he's got links up there.
Yeah.
Did you see the comment that he made like in 2022? He was like, we need more fans going to these games. There's only 30,000 at the MCG and they're not getting us up and about. And it's like, you're moving to Gold Coast, mate. They literally play crowd noise to build an atmosphere up there. So if you live in the Gold Coast, go and watch one of the most exciting sides in the AFL because
I do
shit's
think
gonna be popping there.
Christian Petracca would have learnt a fair bit from last year's trade period. I think there was probably an element after the injury and everything where he sort of went like he didn't understand that if he said like I wanted to go to a big Melbourne club and he probably just thought because he was Christian Petracca that it could get done.
Yeah.
And I think 12 months later he's like I'm not going to be out there. That's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think as far as with that money sticking point from Adelaide, like I don't think he was ever going to take that. Is there a world where he's kind of pushed back on Adelaide because he thought it could have raised his potential contract at the Gold Coast as well? Do you think?
In my mind, I think he would have preferred to go up to Gold Coast and he's like, let's just see if Adelaide will give me a more juicy offer, another $1.5 million or whatever.
Just like what I mean is like he says that to Adelaide. If Adelaide then say yes, do you think he just goes to
power at Gold Coast?
And then he sort of says to Adelaide, well, like they've offered me, like he's almost like trying to turn it into a bidding war potentially.
Yeah.
Well, so to be clear on Petracca's deal, it goes to the end of 2029. It peaks at 1.7 mil and then doesn't fall below 1.2 mil. What has been reported by Theodoropoulos, former cricketer, says Petracca asked the Crows for an extra year on top of his 4-year contract and increased money across the entire deal. So like really tried to milk that. Fair enough. Power to him. It's unclear whether he did the same thing to the Gold Coast Suns. We don't know if he priced Adelaide out on purpose or if he offered both of those deals to Gold Coast and Adelaide and one rejected. Adelaide didn't want to be paying him. I think he would have been Adelaide's most paid player at the age of 35. So you can understand why they walked away from it. But it's unclear whether he did that to the Gold Coast Suns and they accepted it or, he just priced Adelaide out.
Interesting.
The flow-on effect from this, and we'll talk a little bit later about how Melbourne get these deals done and how Gold Coast get them done. Perhaps the better question. But I think the flow-on effect from this is Curnow to Gold Coast is now off. Yeah. So, Geelong probably going to give up pick 18 and 38 or pick 18 for Rowan Marshall and then have nothing left for Curnow and still get him somehow. But it looks like, according to Sam Edmund, he says put a line through Curnow and Gold Coast. You'd think with, rumours of Ugle-Hagan also getting there, Petracca. They're still probably the only club that can get it done though.
I know. Like they can probably still do it.
Like if they lose Humphrey and Flanders and that.
My question is for the Gold Coast specifically, what do you think is a better need for them? Petracca and Ugle-Hagan or Curnow?
I'd really like the fit of Petracca in that Gold Coast side. Like they've got Anderson who can sort of do it all. But yeah, if I think of prime Petracca, he's and you got Rowell. They're so stacked, but I don't know. I just think he complements it very well with, his ability to go forward as a midfielder. I don't think Rowell or Anderson really do that. Miller has, but it's more that sort of high half forward midfield rotation.
Devil's advocate though, you've got Bailey Humphrey.
You've got Bailey Humphrey.
You've got Jake Rogers. You've got Leo Lombard.
Yeah. God, they're so stacked.
They're
it's
so
ridiculous.
stacked. Like Leo Lombard is that forward mid as well.
Yeah. True.
So like Petracca right now is obviously better than those guys. But, as you're building the club, like in 2-3 years, Leo Lombard could be doing what Bailey Humphrey did this year in the finals. You know what I mean?
Petracca could also evolve into just like a full-time forward, that Dangerfield trajectory.
Yeah, and I think he'd be really important in finals for them now that they're starting to push.
Spare a thought for guys like Ned Moyle, Alex Davies, who still fall further and further behind the pecking order and just like, you know what? I'm good. I'm going to stay on the Gold Coast Suns. I'm going to play my VFL. I'm going to watch us win a flag from the stands, the Devon Robertson model. And apparently, obviously what I'm saying is there's a cultural endorsement there for the Gold Coast Suns.
Yeah, absolutely.
Traits.
That's an interesting one. But I feel like for right now, Curnow would actually move the needle more?
Yeah, probably in terms of adding them something that they don't have.
Yeah.
But I think the 1-2 punch, assuming that Ugle-Hagan has his head on straight and when he gets up to the Gold Coast Suns, I'd probably take the 2 players over the 1.
Yeah.
That's a big risk though, isn't it? The Ugle-Hagan move.
Yeah.
You love him, don't you?
I'm a big fan of him as a footballer. Big fan.
Yeah.
I actually saw him walking through Hawthorn the other day, just crossing Glenferrie Road. So he wasn't up in the Gold Coast for too long because the day before was the news that he was flying up to the Gold Coast, and then the day after he was getting a Yochi in Glenferrie Road.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, clearly doesn't have a dietitian.
I just don't think he's put it together like as a footballer either. I think it's just all sort of.
What do you mean he hasn't put it together as a footballer?
I just think it's all at this point.
Well, he
like
hasn't arrived.
Yeah, like it's just ambiguous talent.
He did arrive.
He kicked like 35 goals once.
Can you
Let me
remember-
double check that.
Can
I
you
might not be
remember
right.
when he copped all that like racism in 2023 and he like kicked 5 and like pulled
Yeah.
up his jumper and like that felt like Jamarra Ugle-Hagan was arriving.
Yeah, but I mean, has Harley Reid arrived?
Yeah.
He's had some
He's
big
had
games.
games. Yeah, he has.
But I
arrived
think that's the
as a-
same as Jamarra. Like,
Yeah, obviously
that's the
further
racism thing's like a different story. But yeah, I just don't feel like he's actually.
The talent has been shown. The consistency, maybe not. If he can get a good mentor up there, and maybe it's literally just Damien Hardwick, just a boss that he has to. I don't know.
I think if you peak at, I mean, and this is great for his age, but in his first 4 seasons, like he kicked 7, 18, then 35, then 43. I wouldn't have described that. I mean, it's semantics, but I wouldn't describe that as arriving. It's not as though like Okono is he's won 2 Colemans, you know what I mean? Like a player who's all Australian caliber has arrived. I think Ugle-Hagan could get there, but I wouldn't say he's arrived yet.
He's like 2 stops away, but he got off at the wrong station and he's got to wait a little bit.
Yeah, then he
longer.
accidentally got on the wrong train further away from his destination for a little while here, but Gold Coast have bought him a ticket.
And he's missed an entire year of football. So like all of the stats, we're assuming that that's like a natural trajectory. He's now missed a year of football.
Yeah.
All the distractions of this season. Like I don't know. I never thought that he played football in like an unconditional way. So I think it's risky for the Gold Coast Suns. I don't think they necessarily like them of all clubs don't need to absorb that risk.
I suppose you're right.
I rate it for Gold Coast. Give him a chance.